Good morning, everyone. It is 9 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started with the Behavioral Health Administration Advisory Council meeting on this beautiful day of May 16th. I am Megan Shelton. I go by she, her, and I'm the Division Director of Intergovernmental and Community Engagement with the Behavioral Health Administration. Please note that for our ASL interpretation, during the event, your participant's view will follow the view of a BHA panelist. ASL interpreters will be available to you during the event. If you wish to utilize this, hover over the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen and select American Sign Language. If you wish to view the channel, you may adjust the ratio of a screen being shared and panelist videos visible by hovering your cursor to the left of the panelist until your cursor changes to a horizontal arrow. Left click and drag your cursor across the screen until you have reached the destination. Closed captioning has been enabled for this event. Click on the closed captioning button at the bottom of your Zoom window to turn on subtitles. If you need to change the subtitle language, click the caret to the right of the button and translate to your chosen language. If you are a member of the public and having technical difficulties, please message Marina Borisov in the Q&A. All council members are able to unmute. Please raise your hand to be acknowledged prior to speaking, and please identify yourself. Q&A feature is open for all attendees. However, substantive comments and questions may not be addressed in real time. The chat feature will be open for the last 10 minutes, and the council will determine how to address any public comments or questions we do not get to today. Recording is in progress for note-taking purposes and for any council members not in attendance with us today. All future meeting dates, agendas, and minutes will be posted to the BHAAC website. Any questions or comments regarding the council or BHA can be submitted via the Contact Us section of the BHA website. I wanted to review our group agreement slide. They are to listen and engage respectfully, to note that differences of opinion are natural as well as useful, to always have an open mind, be curious, and be bold. Everyone has equal voice and valuable contribution. Take space and make space. Keep to time and agenda. Start and end meetings on time. Of note, a reminder for all of us not to use acronyms. And it is okay to turn off your camera and take time to reset at any time during the meeting. We know that sometimes we talk about some challenging topics, so please take care of yourself during those moments. And with all of those, after all of those housekeeping items, I am excited to pass it over to Dr. Robert Archuleta, who is our chair of the day. Welcome, Dr. Rob, and thank you for being our chair today.
Hi, I hope everybody's having a good day today. So let's start with calling this meeting to order and getting the roll call going, and then we'll go over the agenda for the day. So sorry, is there a list of everybody that should be, or should I just go council members?
I can call the roll for you if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thanks.
Excellent. Well, I'm Shane Orm. I am a program assistant here at BHA, and I use he, him pronouns. Good morning, everyone. Let's get into it. Karen Ray Anderson. Ashley Castro. Dr. Robert Garcia. Carolyn Hall,
President Ron Lee.
Here.
Oh, Karen, they called you a little earlier too.
I'm here.
Tasha Confrey. Thank you, Carolyn. Tasha, Maria Martinez, you, Narshihi, Jamie Ulrich.
Good morning, I'm here.
Thank you. Cameron Viho,
Sorry, was that Cameron you said?
yes.
I'm here.
Thank you. Captain Washington,
Present. Good morning.
good morning, thank you. Seth Watkins, Selwyn Weiskamp. All right, was there anyone that I did not call? All right, thank you. I'll hand it back to you, Dr. Bell.
Sorry. Okay, so let's go over the agenda. Megan, are you gonna put the agenda up? So, oops. Okay, so we need an approval of the March minutes. And then we also need to vote for a tentative temporary chair. So let's go ahead and vote for the temporary chair next. And I just want to encourage everybody to volunteer to do this because it's just part of our service. And I know it could be a little nerve-wracking, but I think it's awesome for everybody to get to know everybody on the panel. So any volunteers? Does anybody on the panel want to volunteer to chair the next meeting?
BHAAC members, I just want to remind you that volunteering to be the chair, you will get support before the meeting and then during the meeting as well. It is a great opportunity to experience that and see if that's something that you are interested in. We will be voting for our new chair or chairs in probably our July meeting or the meeting after that for sure, now that we have our boards and commissions person on board. And so we'll be hearing more about how BHAAC will be supported by that position as well. But I do once again really want to encourage anyone willing to give it a try, or if you have already done it and you want to do it again, to volunteer to chair our July meeting.
I'm happy to volunteer. This is Cameron Detello.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Cameron.
Kim.
So Megan, I'm just going to assume that Cameron's going to be the one. Do we need to vote on that?
We do need to vote on that, Dr. Rob, yes.
All right, well, since I don't hear anybody else, let's get the vote going. So go ahead and throw your hand up. Not in person, but on your screen, throw your hand up if you agree. Anybody oppose? All right, Megan, you agree? It looks like Cameron's it.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Rob.
All right, thank you again, Cameron, for making that as easy as possible. Okay, so next we need to have an approval of March's minutes. So anybody want to start
I
with
make-
approving? Good.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
That was Carolyn Hall. Carolyn Hall.
I'm sorry, Carolyn Hall.
Yes. Second,
Ron Laidley, a second.
thank you. All right, looks like they're approved. So the first, we have BHAAC business. We're going to welcome the boards and commission coordinator, Caitlin Long. So welcome. I'm going to pass it over and let you do your thing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rob. Hello, everybody. It's great to meet you all. As Dr. Rob said, my name is Caitlin Long, and I'm the new Boards and Commission Policy Coordinator for BHA. So I'm a part of 4 different councils right now, and BHAAC being one of them. So what they've hired me to do is kind of come in and help you guys with overall strategic administration, council organization, membership accountability, as well as task designation, and just overall discussion facilitation. So I'm coming in and kind of just helping you guys with a little bit more of organization, a little bit more resource and information that you guys need in order to be the most productive and a most effective council that you guys can be. So a couple of the things that I'm working on right now across all the different councils is the standardization of bylaws, as well as membership recruitment and training. So really what we're trying to do with the bylaws, with a lot of the people that I've been interviewing with just one-on-one and some of the different council interactions that I've already had, we're seeing a lot of members just being like, what is our purpose? What is our role? Why are we here? And, BHA has kind of failed you guys on that end of giving you that structure and that organization that you need to be that most effective council that you can be. So what we're doing with the standardization of bylaws is we're getting really detailed into exactly the role of the council, exactly what the council is expected to do or produce, or to how you guys are going to be able to give us feedback in order to incorporate that into policies in the future. Some of the other things that it's going to include is going to be membership training and resource platforms and things of that nature. So that's what we're working on right now. We're coming up with a standardized training for all members. So you're going to have access to different resources on the resource platform that we're also creating, such as things as membership code of conduct and Robert's Rule of Order. So basically how the meetings are going to go in the future and the structure of meetings. It's also going to include things such as the open meetings law and quora. So you're going to have access to some of the information just about basic meetings and then the overall function and structure of your council. So this is only the beginning of my 4th week. So I'm very much new to this and very much hang of different councils, but my door and virtual door is always open, of having that one-on-one membership engagement. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, any ideas that you might have for the future of the council moving forward, I really want to hear that. This is ultimately your council. We're just here to give you that foundational support and work together with you guys to be the most effective and the most productive. So yeah, please reach out with absolutely any questions, comments, concerns. Like I said, I really want to hear from you, and I will be reaching out to you all individually as well, either to set up one-on-one meetings just to get to know you a little bit better and know your role and position within this council, as well as just to introduce myself. So definitely keep an eye on your emails because I will be contacting you shortly. Like I said, I'm a member of 4 different councils, so I'm working through it slowly but surely. But yes, really excited to be here and work with all of you. If you have any questions right now, feel free to go ahead and either comment under the chat or unmute yourself. Like I said, I'm still a little bit new, so I might not have all of the answers right now, but I'm happy to at least write down your comments and questions and get back to you if I don't have the answers right off the bat.
All right, thank you, Caitlin. I think that's awesome. We have been asking for some membership training. We've been asking for a little more support and direction. So I'm excited about having that. I know that a lot of other people are too. I'll ask the first question since I have the mic, and that's what you get for letting me do this. But I know one thing that we hear a lot is we want to do some in-person meetings.
Okay.
So I just want to throw that out there. I think a lot of us would like to see each other in person. And I mean, we all feel like Facebook friends, but I think we would definitely enjoy being in the same room as each other. So just throw that out
Absolutely.
there.
Yes, that's a great idea. And definitely, post-COVID, now that we can do that again, I think that's an absolutely wonderful idea, and it will just strengthen that membership engagement as well.
All right, thank you. I'm excited about that.
Yes, and I wanted to
Welcome.
add, that is something that the executive committee has brought up as well, to have an in-person meeting at some point, definitely with a lot of heads up, knowing that our BHAAC council members live throughout the state.
Okay, well, welcome, Caitlin. All right, so next. Megan, do you want to switch to PowerPoint? Oh, there you go. All right.
Yes, I just wanted to
Sorry.
loop back around and make sure there were no other
Okay.
questions on any of those sections before we move on.
Okay, sorry. I had
No, that's okay.
I'm going fast.
I'm also going to drop my contact information in the chat, so you guys will have my email as well as my work cell phone number. So again, please reach out at any point and any time. My background is I hold 2 masters in international communications and public diplomacy from the University of Denver. And I've worked at the state before with DPA, specifically with labor relations. So I'm used to policy legislation when it comes to presenting to different councils such as like the JBC and things of that nature. I've also worked as a healthcare strategy and operations consultant. So I have a little bit of background in healthcare, but when it comes to mental health and behavioral health, that's something that is new to my field. And I'm always looking for new resources, new information, just to better educate myself. So if there's anything that you guys think that might be helpful to me, just to learn and grow as an individual, please feel free to send it my way, because I'm always open to that. I always want to continue to learn and grow as an individual and as well as part of this council. So again, my information is going to be in the chat, and I really look forward to meeting with you all.
Hey, Caitlin, could I just ask you, and this isn't in any way calling you out, I'm just curious,
Yeah.
what were the acronyms? Who did you work for before?
DPA, the Department of Personnel and Administration.
Okay, and what was the other one you said?
I was in healthcare strategy and operations consulting.
Okay, all right, I don't know, the acronyms were better, I don't know what either one of those are, so, no, I'm just kidding.
The consulting was through private entities. So DPA is a state agency that we have. It kind of facilitates all the different agencies as well. It's just kind of an umbrella hub. So, but I worked with the Joint Budget Committee doing basically budget presentations for the state and things of that nature. So a lot of the similar things that you guys are doing with making requests to the state, and I just did it a different level. So
Cool, that's awesome. Well, we're definitely excited, and like I said, welcome.
thank you so much.
All right, so other BHAAC business, we're going to talk about recruitment, open positions, chairs update, current member demographics and terms, required demographics for statutory compliance. So, so I don't know who's presenting on the open positions and the chair update. I think, Megan, did you kind of already lean into that a little bit?
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. So as you all know, we are starting a recruitment process, and Caitlin will share more with you in a little bit about what that will look like going forward. But currently, this is our first, we have found ourselves in our first position of needing to have additional recruitment for our inaugural BHAAC Council. And so we currently do have several open positions. We completed interviews for those positions. We interviewed over 100 people. And so you all saw in the pre-work email that I sent out to all of our council members that Raquel Garcia, Tasha Konkar, Catherine Washington, as well as Caroline Hall, devoted a lot of their time. And we really appreciate you all sitting down and participating in interviews with those interested participants. And so we have started that process, and then we are taking a little bit more time to ensure that we're filling all of the seats. And it's taking a little bit longer because we had so many applicants, and we really want to make sure that we're following all of the processes. And now that we have Caitlin here with us, making sure that we are doing this right and including our executive committee, as well as our council in the decisions for the council. And Karen or Renee, I see that you have your hand up, so I'll stop for a moment.
Yes, I would just recommend that we really strive to get people in rural areas more than the metros, only because we don't have services out here. And that's where you really need to see the pictures of the rural community as well. So I was just saying, when you do choose to really think about the rural, because we need a lot of help.
Thank you so much for that. And Caitlin will share a little bit more. We have some coming slides that talk a little bit more about that process as well. And definitely value ensuring that we are getting more rural representation and ensuring that all of our seats are representative as outlined in statute as well. And then along with that, we will, for chairs, we will likely be having a chair and a vice chair when we elect our chairs this next round. And chairs will be voted in once we have a full council. So once we have finished this round of recruitment, then we will vote on our chairs. And then Caitlin, I believe the next slide you put together on the statute. So I will pass it back to you.
Sure. So we just want to kind of highlight right now the current members of the board, what their representing community is, and then their term limit that is going to be approaching. So right now, a vast majority of the board is still going to be in until 2025, which is great. So we have time to work together and get to know each other and really make this council the most effective council it can be. This is, again, like I said, the representing communities is the most important part of this. If you see your name and there's not information in there, it seems though you missed one of the meetings that we solidified this information. And so if you could just please reach out to us directly to give us your representing community demographics, that would be absolutely fantastic. So please go ahead and send us that information. And then as well, if you see any information on here that is either missing or incorrect or anything like that, definitely please reach out to us as well. So moving on to the next slide. So in order for us to meet statute, we have to have a certain amount of members, and we have to have a certain amount of populations and demographics met. So these are our list right here. It's 2750, 702. So we have to have at least 15 members, and we can't have more than 20 members. And then within these members, members have to represent one of these communities as well as lived experience. And so right now, what we're lacking is one of the tribal governments. It's the Southern Ute tribe. So that is a recruitment effort that we are making right now, as well as the Colorado State Judicial Branch. That is another effort. When it comes to membership recruitment, we are working on a standardized process. I'm actually using a different council, the BHAAC, as a kind of a template in order to create the standardized recruitment. So what we're thinking is, depending on when term limits are approaching. So like I said, for a vast majority, we don't have in 2024, which is great. So we have a little bit of time. But for next rounds of recruitment, we're going to standardize an actual recruitment month where we're going to be sending out letters to each of the council members to forward onto your communities. So for example, with the rural communities, if you are part of that rural community and you know other members that need to be involved, or you would like to be involved at that council, you're going to have the opportunity to go ahead and send that email to your network so they can go ahead and apply for this position. We're also talking about standardizing applications across the board. So council member or potential council members can apply to this board, but also might be a better fit or interested in a secondary board. And so if this membership, for example, is full and we don't have any room for new members, we can use their information and put them into a different council for an interim period until this membership opens up again. So this is a lot being thrown at you. There's a lot of things that we're working on right now. With a standard period of recruitment, we're going to have basically a month for you guys to send this information to your communities. Then we're going to have a month to review applications and see which qualified candidate is going to be the best. And then we're going to have an appointment period where that month is going to consist of member onboarding and member training. So that's going to look just basically, we're going to do a whole refresh for absolutely all of the members. So new members will get that training that they need for new members. Continued members will just get that refresh of training, again, when it comes to things such as like open meetings law, Quora, Robert's Rule of Order, and things of that nature. And then there's going to be some secondary training for them as well, which is just going to consist of, you know, what the BHA is, what this council is, the different councils, and things of that nature. So a lot of information coming at you guys right now. Again, this is a working process. This is not going to be an overnight fix, and I'm going to be relying on a lot of you guys when it comes to certain questions that we need to ask, the information that we need to obtain, making sure that the training that we're providing for you all is the exact kind of training that you're needing and is answering the questions that you have. So all of this to come, but this is kind of where we are right now.
BHAAC council members, what questions do you have? I know Caitlin just shared a lot with you. Much of this information is stuff many of you may already know, but some of it may be new. So we would love to hear your questions if you have any.
Yeah, I would also just like to say, you know, it feels like the ball's rolling in the right direction. I really wish we would have had this as the springboard for when we first started, but better late than never. I'm excited. I keep saying I'm excited, but I'll say this, I'm pleased that we have a foundation now that we're kind of working our way up from. So I like that this is all going down.
Great. I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, I know it's been frustrating for members, not even of just this council, but councils across the board. And, you know, that's my whole goal and that's my whole purpose. And that's why I was hired, is to help provide you guys with this foundation. So I really, really want to work closely with each and every one of you to make sure, like I said, the questions that you have are being answered. You have the resources at your hand in order to be the most effective and the most productive. So that's my whole purpose. So that's why I'm here. And I really want to hear from you all and really engage with you all. So just flood my inbox, give me a call. I'd love to meet for lunch, coffee, whatever you guys want to do. I'm here.
Yeah. Caitlin, I'll just ask this too, like, I know that when we've had meetings before and people have talked, one of the things that the advisory council really wants to be a part of, what's up, Tosh? I just saw Tosh. So one of the things I was going to say is, I know that all of us have talked about this, is we would like to be advising. We would like to be asked. And so the more we could organize those kind of things instead of just, like it's great being on these meetings, but also to have a voice when decisions are being made. And so we kind of started that with some of the BOSO stuff, and then it kind of just fell. So I know that we're the advisory committee, and I think advising would be awesome. So I'll say that
Right.
without speaking for everyone, but I know that's come up a few times.
Right. I mean, that's the whole point of this council, right? You guys are the ones that are living this day to day. You're the ones with the feet on the ground. You're the ones that are seeing what our communities are needing. We're not just going to have people, just old people in office, just making up laws for the fun of it anymore. This is your council. This is why you're here. This is why you are created. And so that's why we need to get you that resources and that information in these platforms in order to be heard and to advise. And so, what we're going to be planning on in the future, especially with this report upcoming in September, Tasha's going to be speaking more about that in a little while. But that's your main platform. That's where you guys advise, and this is going to be written in black and white. And this year's report is going to be completely different from last year's report. I read the report last year. I've read your frustrations, and all of this is going to be addressed. And this moving forward, we're a new council and we're going to be advising. We're also going to show you all in the future how your advice has been incorporated into our reports and into statute and everything in the future as well. So there's going to be a whole system of briefing and updates and accountability as well. So yes, you guys are here to advise, and that's your role, and that's what you're going to be doing. So
I will just add to that also that we will be continuing the same structure where there will be the information presented to you in usually the second half of the meeting. So today's meeting is set up like that as well. And I know that every month the discussion and the advising you all have been doing has increasing and getting more and more active. Those discussions are so valuable, and it's really beautiful to be able to see all of the work that this council has really been doing progressively since September. And you will see as our agendas continue to progress, similar today, there's grievance on there. And so that is us. We listened to you when you advised, and we had great discussion on grievance. And so now coming back to you and looping back around to have those clarifying questions. So you'll see this council continue to do that, continue to have that space for you all to be really serving your role. And it's been really, I want to give you the credit that you deserve over the last several months, because you have really invested with us and listening to those presentations and helping us identify gaps. And it's exciting to see that work progressively moving forward. Caitlin, were you done with that last slide?
yes, again, just for recruitment right now, we're kind of going to continue the same process that we have. But again, with the standardization of bylaws, that is going to be clearly defined. I expect to have the first draft of bylaws to you to review in July. And so you'll be getting that first round of bylaws to review. We'll give you those about 2 months to look it over, make any comments, questions, concerns, clarifications. We want to make sure that you all can clearly read this and be like, okay, this is what expected of me. This is what we're doing. This is my role within this council. And then we'll come back together, let's see here, September, and then review it together, and then we'll get a finalized bylaw out as well. So just more to come on recruitment in the future. Just know that is a high priority for us, and especially to meet all of our statutory requirements and get the correct people in these seats to make that to make the system work as best as we can. So, but yeah, if anybody has any other questions, let me know. Otherwise, my information's in the chat, and I'll drop it in again periodically throughout the meeting.
Thank you, Caitlin. I will give it a moment. Raise your hand if you have any questions before we move on to our next slide.
All right, if there's no other questions, next we're going to talk about, we have the BHA Family Voice Update, the Executive Committee, and the BHAAC Report Update. So who's doing the Family Voice? And then we got a break.
That's me. I have that, Dr. Rob.
Okay.
Okay, so we have been talking about Family Voice for several months now. I believe we started back in November, and we talked about Family Voice Council, and CDHS has a Family Voice Council, and so we began to move in that direction, and we started recruitment, and we did recruitment for Family Voice along with recruitment for BHAAC, and there were so many applicants, and the majority of the applicants really wanted to be on either BHAAC or Family Voice. They just want to be involved. They just want to be helping to co-create and ensuring that the voices of Colorado are heard and implemented into the work that we're doing, which is incredibly important to all of us at the BHA as well. And so with the amount of interest that we got, we took a step back and really evaluated, can we do more than just have a Family Voice Council of 12 people? Does the BHA's Family Voice need to be bigger than that? And so we've been really excited to have some really big conversations around that, and are looking to go in the direction of expanding it to not just be a small Family Voice Council, but to have several Family Voice coalitions. So these can be larger groups of people, and these can be regionally based. And so that really, Renee, you asked a question earlier about rural communities. And I think when we expand it into coalitions rather than just a small council, we get to incorporate more voices and ensuring that we're bringing folks from all of the underserved communities within Colorado into our coalitions. And so I am really, really excited about moving in this direction. And as we start to build that out and move forward with next steps, we will definitely be reaching out to you all and to our executive committee to get some direction, to have support, and to ensure that we, at the end of the day, bringing in the voices of Colorado's communities is one of the most important aspects of the work we do. It's the reason we do the work that we do. Amy.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
Meg.
you. Good.
Sorry, Dr. Rob. Thank you, Megan. I think that's fantastic. I think that's a really positive, path moving forward. Are you planning on having the same number of council members on these regional coalitions? Are you thinking about like kind of keeping it smaller? Or are you going to expand the number that you're going to be offering it to?
Great question, Jamie. Thank you. So one of the main purposes of moving from a council to a coalition is to expand the number. So as we move forward, we'll look at the size of what those coalitions will be. And what we have been talking about in our initial conversations around that is having them be regional coalitions. And so I shared with all of you, I've shared a couple of times, but also most recently in the BHAAC pre-work email that I sent out last week, we are in the process of hiring regional engagement specialists onto this division. And so they will each be focusing on community engagement with all of the, with our county representatives in each of the regions, our providers, other various partners, but specifically focused on underserved communities. And so they will be helping to support each of those coalitions. And so the size of the coalition hasn't been determined yet, but I think going in the direction of a coalition rather than a council really allows us to expand it and involve more people. Are there more questions on the Family Voice update?
All right, if there's no more questions, we could move over
Tasha, were
to
you talking? Okay.
I'm talking to myself. I don't remember if I'm supposed to ask questions or not. Like, I'm still trying to wake up here. Sorry.
You are welcome to ask questions, but definitely not obligated.
Carolyn, do you have a question?
I don't. I just have a comment, and I want to say that I think that's a really good idea. I really love that you want to open up and bring more family boys to the 4 quadrants or the 4 regions, because I think each area, like Karen says, that, you know, have different needs. And so I really appreciate that. Thank you. For the coalitions, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Caroline.
Somebody else has their hand up. Tasha, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I have a question right quick. When it comes to like the rural areas and stuff like that, because there is a lot of a lack of services, to say the least, especially for people in rural areas. So with my question being is, well, that goes along with the report too. So with the grievance and the performance and stuff like that with the regions. And so I guess, I don't know, is it a great time to transition right into that report? I don't know.
So
Will our coalitions be a part of, like, for following years, will it be part of the report too, the report process?
I think that that's a great question. I'm trying to understand your question, because the coalitions, the Family Voice coalitions, will be separate. It will be different than BHAAC. So if you're referring
Right,
to
right.
the BHAAC
Those would
report,
be our working groups, right? Would that be part of our working groups for the council? Is the different region coalitions? I don't know if I'm wording it properly. I don't know. Am I laying it down all right, guys? I don't know.
Tasha, for clarification, are you thinking about subcommittees rather than Family Voice Coalition?
I guess I think I might be thinking about that. I don't know. Thank you.
Okay. So many things, and I appreciate you always flagging all of the important topics for us, Tasha. And so that will be something that, as Caitlin works on really understanding all things that are BHAAC, and as she had mentioned, getting our bylaws together and really diving into statute to ensuring that BHA is supporting BHAAC in every way possible, addressing those subcommittees and working out what that will be, probably taking some steps back. I know we had some discussions very early on before I even joined you all. And so I think Caitlin will really be able to help us get some clarity around that and get that established in a really positive direction. But that will be different than the Family Voice coalitions is separate than BHAAC. Okay.
One of the things I just want to throw out there real quick before we move on to the executive committee is there's more services in rural areas right now than there ever has been, and that's still not enough, right? But one of the things that we are noticing is there's not a lot of, and I think this is maybe not the right time, but just to throw this out there, there's a lot of coaching from the bench, which isn't a bad thing, but a lot of these programs and a lot of these processes are being promoted through email, through virtual services. I would love to see the BHA on a tour and in person and going into the community, shaking hands, talking about programs, because I know we do it a lot and it's still not enough to be there doing that. So I know that for sure, and if the BHAAC can be a part of that, I know some of us would be willing to. it's getting in those communities, hearing what, you know, because not everybody is logging into these meetings. Not everybody has access to email. Not everybody wants to talk through email. And just hosting more community meetings in person and really hearing what the voices in the community are saying, and then also updating and educating on all the changes that the BHA is going through and the services being offered. So I just want to throw that out there, that I know in the smaller communities, there is a lot less in person going on, and it's just kind of like it's really happening from the sidelines. And so I definitely would like to see more players from the BHA on the field, especially in those smaller communities.
Thank you, Dr. Rob, for that. And that aligns perfectly with Commissioner Smith's vision for BHA and her dedication to getting out into the community. And so I can share with you that she has tasked me and my team with really looking at her engagement throughout Colorado. And so we are looking at this fall of really traveling throughout the state, getting out in the communities. We will be doing public town halls everywhere that we go. And so definitely we'll be reaching out to our BHAAC members to ensure that you're helping us get the word out, and would love for you to join us everywhere that everywhere you are that we arrive. And so all of that information will definitely be passed to you, coordinated with you. I will be looking to many of you as the experts in which providers we should be connecting with and how we should be getting the word out to those public town halls.
Hey, awesome. Well, you were already on it, so I'm not going to take credit for bringing that up. So next is the BHAAC Executive Committee. I'm guessing that's Tasha. Tosh?
We currently have a BHAAC Executive Committee, but in many of those meetings, we have not a lot of participation. And so Caitlin is also going to work with who we currently have on that executive committee, evaluate if they have the availability, if this is still something that they're able to and willing to be a part of. And then we can reevaluate who's on that executive committee as well, because we really want that executive committee to really be playing the role of decision-making and agenda planning and ensuring that everything is aligned with that this is really your council, which is hard to do when there's only one or two members that come and they feel like they can't make those decisions on their own. It feels like a lot of pressure for them. And so we want to make sure we have a full executive committee with the flexibility and the availability to participate in those meetings, and then also looking at the meeting cadence and schedule and seeing if we can work with that so that it works better for folks. So that is, keep an eye out for that. There will be emails with some updates on that, but also giving Caitlin some time to really get accustomed to her role. She has dove right in and she is brilliant, and I am really excited to be working with her. But we also want to be patient that she can't do everything at once, although she is trying and she's doing an amazing job of that.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. And I think having Caitlin does sound like a good idea. I think, and this is just me saying this, maybe that there hasn't been as much participation because the focus has been random or spread out. And so the more we could be focused, it's easier for some of us to know how much time we could dedicate it to it, what we're working on, instead of just kind of like trying to embrace all of it at the same time. So I look forward to having some leadership and some, just tightening it up and knowing what we're working on. Because I'm guilty about being a part of that executive committee and had to look at as busy and say, okay, well, what are we focusing on? Because if this isn't really focused, a lot of us value our time, and it's really hard to be a part of that. So I think you'll have more participation when we know that there's when there's focus and a deadline, and really know what the target is that we're aiming for.
Great, thank you.
So is there another BHAAC report update? Is that where we're at?
That is your very own Tasha Konkar.
I take it that's my cue, right? Are we just flowing? I can't see the agenda. So it's that time of year again, guys. Report season. We all know that this report keeps people up at night. And this year I'm really happy to work on this with you guys, because this year's report is going to be so much more. There's going to be so much more meat and potatoes to report on than we did last year. So I'm really, really, really excited to work on this again. The process, pretty much how we're going to get it all structured. Look at the meat and potatoes. We don't need all that fluff anymore. Like, we need the meat and potatoes and what's codified in statute that we have to report on. Yeah, I think I'm doing all right. And yeah, we just have different things like access to care, the grievance system, which we've been having meetings about. So there's stuff to report. So, am I missing anything else, Caitlin or Megan?
Tasha, as we mentioned yesterday, I think you were going to talk about just the plan that you were putting together to move forward, as you had led the report writing group last year. And so we talked a little bit about lessons learned and how to move forward in a positive direction.
Thank you for that guidance. I greatly appreciate your assistance there, Megan. This year's report, and this is just me, and I don't know how I speak for the rest of the council. You guys can interject and stuff like this, but last year was really traumatizing for us as a council and everything that we went through. And that was a big focus on that report. This year, I don't want to focus on the traumas. We need to focus on, and this is just where I see it, focusing on what we have accomplished and where we're going, because we have accomplished a lot as the BHA as well as the advisory council. So, yeah, it's gonna be meat and potatoes, truth, hard fact, like no fluff, no excuses. We're just gonna do it. I would like to see a lot of other council members that haven't really been a part or engaged with council business and stuff like that. I would like to see maybe some new faces. That's just me. I'm just saying. So yeah, I think I covered it. We're gonna do like meeting schedules. We're gonna send out some 2 choices. We're gonna give 2 choices. And we'll let you guys let us know how that works out for you. That's my motto that I live by. So when it comes to getting for those meetings for the work group or subcommittee, whatever you want to call it, for the report, we're gonna send out a doodle poll, I think is what it is, right, Megan? And then yeah, and volunteers, we're looking for like 5 members, I believe is what we had on there. Yeah, so yeah, that's interesting. I'm excited, guys. I'm excited. So yeah, I hope you guys are just as excited as I am. Am I forgetting anything?
I think you were going to mention that there's time right now for discussion around what that work group should be like, as well as planning time into the July meeting for it. But I also see Jamie has her hand up.
Yeah, Jamie.
Thanks, Tasha.
Thank you.
So I guess I did have some questions regarding the work group for the BHAAC report or subcommittee, whatever we're calling it. Are you recruiting for those members now? And what is the time commitment? What are you expecting from work group members? Just curious as to if we can get a little more information to see if it's something we can volunteer for.
Yes, and I believe that's maybe why Caitlin has her hand up, because she's my assistant on this one. So I think that's why. So
Tasha's definitely running point on this. I'm just here for the extra support. So what we were kind of planning on doing is So the report is due September 1st. We would like to have this kind of finalized at least a week or two before, just to give you guys time to sit with it, reflect on it, make sure that everything's included, that A is first statutorily required, and then B, all voices are being heard in this matter. So we want to get it done a little bit ahead of time and not wait until the exact September 1st deadline. We're planning on taking a good portion of the July meeting to go over like Tasha said, the meat and potatoes of it all. So right now, what we're planning on doing, I'm sending a poll to Tasha to review and finalize by the end of this week. Then we will be sending it out to all members next. This is going to include exactly what we're going to be reviewing in the report, as well as different thoughts for you guys to have the open voice and have your own individual communities heard as well. So all that information about what's going to be included on the report will be in that poll or in that email as well. And then you'll have opportunity to sign up for it and opportunity to choose dates and times that work best for you. So in the beginning, we haven't had a finalized, we're going to meet like every week or every other week yet. But I imagine following July, it will be at least a bi-weekly occurrence, if not a weekly occurrence, probably for about an hour, just to meet and review, exactly what we're requiring in statute for you to report on, and then any other secondary reports that you might have as well. So it will be a time commitment, probably I would say at least an hour a week after July, if not before July as well. But this is the whole purpose of this council, is this report, like you guys said, this advising, like this is how you advise, is this report right here. So it's very important, not only to BHA, but to this council and to the state as a whole. So, I understand that life comes up and things happen, and if you can't make every single meeting, we get it, but that's also why we're starting it earlier as opposed to after July, as we have done in the past, is just to give us that ample time just to work with life and things happening. And, we just really want to make sure that we're doing this in a timely fashion, that you all feel supported and not rushed. And again, we can advise and be articulate and as thorough as possible in this report. So more detailed information is going to be coming to you probably by next week, if not the following week at the latest. And then you'll be able to sign up for it if that is something that you can commit to at this time. And again, we're looking for at least 5 members. More hands on deck, the easier this can go, the faster it can go. But that's kind of where we are with everything right now. Tasha, do you have anything to add or correct?
No, thank you for covering all the stuff that I forgot to cover. So,
no problem. I gotcha.
Thank you.
It looks
Thank
like
you.
Karen has their hand raised.
Karen Renee Anderson.
So I'm assuming that with this report, there is a template, correct?
An outline. We have an outline of what we're supposed to cover in statutory guidelines. I was a part of the report writing committee last year, so I'm all in it for this year too. So to guide. So yeah, there's like 3 major things in there that we have to, unless it's been updated since last year. I don't know. Ryan Templeton knows more about all that legislation stuff than all us, but yeah. So did I answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, so there is kind of a generalized template, and then I'm going to be including a just kind of like a little cheat sheet that we have with regards to the statutory requirements. There's 4 different ones statutorily that you all are involved in, with identifying underserved populations, providing input to develop a process for addressing individual grievances, collaborating in a systems setting performance standard, as well as collaborating to establish what services are available across Colorado. So those are the big 4 statutorily that you all are required to report on. And that's going to be this little cheat sheet I'm going to include in the email going out to all council members. So you will have that information readily available. And then we'll do, as a group in these settings, a deeper dive into exactly what those mean, exactly how you are we'd like to help you report on them and things of that nature. But again, this is your report. This is your council. These are what we have to meet statutorily. But other than that, we really want to hear your voices from individuals as well as your communities as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Caitlin. Yeah, I was just looking, where's all of our council members? I was just looking at all the members on this report, on this meeting. So yeah, just I'm like, where's the council members? Sorry, I was just thrown back by that. So yeah, I'm transparency and accountability, guys. You know how I am. I'm gonna make sure that we're led and guided in the correct direction this time. So especially this year, because when it came to this report, we didn't know what we were doing. We're seasoned this year. So I look forward to working with you guys with all this. So yeah, thank you. Did I miss anything, Megan?
I don't think so. We have 15 minutes left to continue to discuss reports. So if there's questions, if there's more information that you want to share, if you want to talk Caitlin or Tasha a little bit more in depth about maybe starting some planning with how we will start with the work group for the report. I think we have some time to do that now if we want to.
All right. Yeah, let's get it. I'm okay with that. You guys okay with that?
Yeah,
We're a team. All right.
Tasha, I think it would be helpful just to explain like really the report too, since we have a little bit of time, and Caitlin, because anytime you hear report, it sounds like homework and it's scary, right? And so saying that we're celebrating wins, we're talking about experiences, we're sharing strength, we're not just like submitting something because it's required and checking boxes. And I feel like I feel like you guys did an amazing job last year because you were flying the plane. You were building the plane as it was in the air. You know what I mean? So I think this year, like, no matter what, nothing's going to be a ditch. It's all just going to be a speed bump no matter what happens this year. So just explaining, like, what's the purpose of it? What's the purpose of it? What should the goal and the aim be? I think that's also helpful with getting other BHAAC members involved, is just having clarification.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, Dr. Rob. Pretty much what this report is funding. Ryan, is that right? Can you clarify on this? Because you know a lot about the report. So I know it's about implementing new changes into our systems. So, and making sure there's access to care across the board for every Coloradoan. That's what I know.
Yep, if I may. So Ryan Templeton, I'm the Policy and External Affairs Division Director with the Behavioral Health Administration. So I see this report as the culmination of the year's work that BHAAC has put into where are we going with behavioral health in Colorado? This isn't a report that is, which we've been using. It's not just rainbows and butterflies. This is what is real? What are we seeing? I've been very interested in following along with where are rural service delivery? What does that look like? How do we actually get to a spot where access to service delivery and quality service delivery should be a right of all people in Colorado, right? So how do we get there? Like Caitlin had mentioned, there are some specific statutory deliverables. I like the framework that Colorado law provides, but I know not everyone likes that. And looking at Megan's face, I'll try to slow down a little bit too here. So with that, there are some statutory requirements that would be good to see in there, but that's not necessarily specifically required in this report that is statutorily due September 1. It gets delivered to the Behavioral Health Administration to be included in the BHA's legislative report that is due to the General Assembly. So our friends over at the Capitol, the BHA is required to submit a report on October 1 that includes this report. It is statutorily required that our report to the General Assembly includes BHAAC's report that comes September 1. That's why the timing comes out a month before, so we can make sure that it gets essentially unedited into our General Assembly report that we send over October 1. So that's just the foundation piece. I'm incredibly excited to have Caitlin involved in this, because this is also really that opportunity to really think about, wait, we have 4 specific BHA advisory councils, right? Kaylin mentioned the Behavioral Health Planning and Advisory Council, which is different than the Behavioral Health Administration Advisory Council. Very similar names and acronyms, right? BPAC versus BHAAC. But even like, how are we working? How is this group, right? BHAAC working with other advisory councils to get to that full vision. I think we are really in a good spot with Commissioner Smith. I'm on board now, really thinking about where we are moving. How are we getting to that spot of, I mean, quality access to behavioral health services, or access to quality behavioral health services, I should say. So this report really is that, hey, how are things going? Where are we at? Right? There's all of these statutory requirements that the Behavioral Health Administration is responsible for. How are we doing? I mean, this can also be that report out. So this is that really that big opportunity to say, here's where we're at, here's where we're going, and it gets a formal report that ultimately gets sent over to our General Assembly friends.
Ryan, would you say this report, or Megan and Caitlin, would you say this report is like pretty much like the recommendations for the state by the people of Colorado? Because I mean, we represent, on this council, we represent these different demographics. So this is pretty much like from what the boots on the ground to the words in the mouth to the upper changey people, you know, who get to change things. Sorry, I'm trying to get my wording all together.
Yep. Yeah, it is, Dasha. I mean, it is that recommendations. This is the, I mean, I think this is how it flows into what membership looks like, what recruitment looks like, who, when you are formally appointed to serve on BHAAC, what does that mean? Who are you actually representing? That is all of the people of Colorado that deserve to have access to behavioral health services. Like, should be a really big deal, right? Like, and y'all are a big deal on this, right? Because it is the voice that you bring to this as well. But then also fully acknowledging that it's not the only voice that matters as well, right? We need to get in community, like Megan had talked about, and actually see what is happening there, and actually have real conversations in all of your communities as well as across other parts of Colorado. So those are the pieces that fit into this. This is just one piece of the step, one of those requirements to try to make sure that the General Assembly is making sure that they're aware of what's going on, and having that co-creation piece of what the system looks like. That was a foundational piece for BHA creation there. So this is that one of those pieces that is driven by recommendations to where we go.
Thank you, Ray. That got me even more excited. So this is where us as a council, we can come together and definitely make these recommendations, and this is where our voices are heard for all the people of Colorado. So I just want to let you guys know, like, that's how important we are as a council to the state is. It may be slow, but I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it, guys. I'm seeing it. So I just have to thank all of you guys for being a part and sticking it through too. So we're a team. So thank you.
Thank you,
Any other
Tasha.
questions?
I was just going to say, Tasha, we really appreciate your willingness to continue to move us forward with lessons learned, and continue to support the report writing process, and your dedication to ensuring that all things that are outlined in statute are included in all of these processes. It means a lot that you're so dedicated. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Lively bunch today, guys.
Well, I just want to take a second to give Ryan props for speaking slower and taking your time, because last time they gave you a really hard time about speaking too quickly. So good job, Ryan.
Well, thank you, Dr. Rob. I got a bunch of direct comments to slow down, please. Like, you need to go slower. So I don't know if I actually did a very good job today so far, but I'll have another chance with the legislative update coming soon.
You did a really good job, Ryan. As Ryan talks, just so you all know, I am staring at the interpreter and making sure that Ryan's not making them have to go too fast.
All right. Want to break early, or do we just kind of kick it? Anything else? Anybody else have any other comments? Or
Dr. Rob, if there are no other comments, you can extend our break by 5 minutes to keep us on track. That's your prerogative.
all right, well, if there's nothing else, let's take a break. We'll come back at 10:15, so everybody gets 5 more minutes. So quick, oh, sorry.
We'll come back at 10:30.
Okay, 10:30. I just leave it in the 10:15 break. Okay, see y'all 10:30. All right, so we're back. Catherine, did you have something you want to throw out there before we take the update?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rob. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Okay. So first I want to say thank you for the explanation on what's usually in the report and why it's important. But I have a really quick concern. What's a concern of mine? So we know what we're doing at the BHAC. My question is, how do we translate what is in those reports into actionable, steps in the community? I feel like similar to rural communities, inner cities are still missing a lot of resources. I feel that, so sorry. I feel like there's a lot more that needs to be done. If I tell anybody that I'm in the, BHA or BHAC, I mentioned it, no one knows what that is. And I'm still seeing where mental health is still deteriorating. We got communities that are still deteriorated. And I really don't want to see another decade or generation of people who we're trying to help, but we're not getting the help to them. And I'm actually watching this. And so I feel that there needs to be some kind of metric before and after. How are we measuring these changes? How are we measuring that a before and after? How are we supposed to know that this is what's going on? Because I don't see it. I actually had someone walk through with me, and it's just amazing to have you guys walk with us, because I think in order for you to really get a good idea of what's going on, you have to be there. And that's why I requested so much. But even after that, I need to know, what are we measuring? How are we measuring this, and what's really going to be done about it? I just can't sit around and do this anymore. I really want to be the one that's hands-on, boots on the ground. That's who I am. For instance, I feel that a lot of the stuff that we see in terms of crime is all related to behavioral health, trauma. And I feel like some of these communities are truly impacted by this, and the result is just horrific. And as this council, I need to know, what more can we do?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for being so emotional.
No. Yeah, Catherine, I think you bring up a great point. I know that the BHA, for specific grants that they put out, there's some reporting requirements, and I think unfortunately, it takes a couple of years to get that data. And this is just me speaking from personal experience, nothing with the BHA. I also am on board with what you're saying, Catherine. We need something tangible, and we need to be able to measure our successes. One of the things that I think would be extremely helpful, and I don't know how we would do this or where to even start, but I would also like to know, if we could somehow get providers to put together how many times services were refused, right? Not just because a lot of times we have the medicine as providers, but we don't have the patients, or and so that would be also I don't know how we would start doing that. And that's probably takes a bigger brain than mine, but also knowing because sometimes we're offering stuff in the community that's not being accepted, or that's not being utilized. So I think it would be nice to have some providers being able to put data into a dashboard. We offered this many services, they were refused, and then breaking down how many behavioral, how many assessments, how many, and I think, you know, having a centralized place where the data is being collected, I think the BOSO system is gonna, you know, also add another layer to that. But Catherine, we'll definitely circle back to that before we shut it down. Unless Megan, do you want to say anything on that?
Yes, I have a lot to say on that, but I do want to pay attention to our agenda
Okay.
and be mindful of Commissioner Smith's time
Okay.
that was on here for 10:30.
Oh, I thought it said
Catherine, are you
10:40,
okay if
sorry.
we circle back on your question?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that, Megan. For some reason, I thought it was 10:40. I'm like reading the PowerPoint wrong. So, well, if we're ready for that, then we'll definitely circle back. Let's get up going with the commissioner update.
Commissioner Smith, thank you for joining us today for your briefing.
Okay, now you can hear me.
We can
Morning
hear
to
you.
everybody. So glad to see you. Well, I think I'm like on day 60 here in Denver in the state of Colorado. I moved officially the last week of April in the midst of a tornado storm in Nebraska. And I was very lucky to have my brother who helped me move and get settled here in Denver. So I guess I'm a Coloradan now. So happy to be here and happy to see all of you. Since we met the last time, I can tell you I have been out in the community nonstop. I have met with so many people, from associations to providers to legislators. It has just been a phenomenal whirlwind for me, and I'm totally enjoying this job. And of course, we're just getting started in the real work of the BHA. But I do want you to know that a lot of my focus over the last 60 days has been in the community. And I'd like to just share with you some of the themes that I'm hearing. The first one is that people really want BHA to be successful. It really wants BHA to be the authority on how behavioral health services are implemented in the state of Colorado. I'm hearing that resoundingly. I'm also hearing that there's a need to make sure that we balance good behavioral health services between children's behavioral health and substance abuse and adult behavioral health and substance use. And so a lot of my focus will kind of be on those particular areas to make sure that we're strengthening not only the 6 pillars and the 19 recommendations, but we're really doing what we're hearing our communities say. And then the third is people's personal and professional outreach to me in terms of being successful in this role. A lot of the outreach and conversations that I'm having is really about how community organizations, hospitals, providers can help me, but help BHA be successful and really be the beacon of light for behavioral here in the state of Colorado. So it's been fabulous. Thus far, I have enjoyed being here, and thus far, I'm loving the job. So all is well. I know there may have been some conversations about the RFP process for 988. And so I just want to answer as much as I can for right now. As you may know, there is a tentative award to another organization outside of the former organization that had the contract. We are in the midst of a protest process right now, and I cannot go into detail because that protest process allows for any agency who would like to protest the decision to have the opportunity to do that. I want you to know that we are committed here to making sure that the 988 crisis line services continue to be maintained. Now, it may be maintained by a new vendor, or it may be maintained by the existing vendor now. That I don't know. But the state has a commitment to ensure that there is no gaps in service during this transition period. So that's kind of my update. I know that I'll be back with you next month, continuing to do updates as we are beginning to put our strategic plan together, which will be, and when I speak of a strategic plan, I'm talking about the roadmap that the department is going to follow as we look at the 6 pillars and 9 recommendations. I'd like to begin to bring that back to you late June, probably, if you hold me to it, probably early July is when I really would like to have more of a detailed conversation about what the roadmap looks like and where we're going from a BHA standpoint. Thank you for allowing me to join you today. It's just been a fabulous experience being here in Colorado. Megan, I turn it back to you or for questions or whatever.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Smith. And just to give you a heads up, our next BHAAC meeting will be in the middle of July. So that might
that's
be a
perfect.
good time for you to meet with them.
That's perfect. By that time, I'll have some information to share and that'll be good time. That's good. Anything else you need from me, Megan?
I think that covers it. And BHAAC council members, if you have questions for Commissioner Smith, you are always welcome to send those to me and I will make sure to get either get you answers or get those to Commissioner Smith. So feel free to email me. And I will pass it back to you, Dr. Rupp.
I'll throw this out there. Welcome to Colorado. Glad you're settled in now, and it sounds like you're excited about the job. I think which makes us excited about the direction we're going in. So welcome again. Like we said last time, and I'm sure most of us, we can't wait to meet you in person and see you in our communities coming soon. I know Megan's putting together a tour T-shirt of your tour in the fall, and so we'll all make sure we're getting in line to be a part of that tour.
I'm designing a T-shirt, Dr. Rob.
Yeah, I know. I was just kidding. Just kidding. There's
Well,
not
Robert,
a T-shirt. Just kidding.
Yeah, Robert, thank you so much. In fact, I'm going to be speaking on Saturday from 10 to 12 at the BHAAC Roundtable talking about mental health. And so I am getting out there. I really like being in the community. I think, as I said to this group, I am deeply rooted in community engagement. And so not only do I feel comfortable at a legislative perspective, but I'm also very, very comfortable articulating our agenda in the community, which is where I think all the work gets done. So yeah, I'll be out Saturday, BHAAC Roundtable from 10 to 12.
All right, awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you. If there's nothing else, it's 10:40, move to the legislative update.
Okay, thank you all.
I just want to clarify one more time, there's not a T-shirt coming. Megan's not creating a tour shirt.
Rob might be putting together the design.
If you get me the design, I'll get the print, Kate.
All right, Ryan. Is Ryan here?
Yep, Dr. Rob, I thought it was going to be the tour T-shirt for my hip hop.
Your boy band
that you were part of.
Yeah. Okay, well, maybe we could be the opening act for the commissioner tour.
All right. So with the legislative update, I'm Ryan Templeton. I'm the Policy and External Affairs Division Director with the Behavioral Health Administration. Yeah, so the 2024 Colorado legislative session ended on Wednesday, May 8th, so a little over a week ago. I'll try not to sound too excited about that ending, but I am very excited about that ending because it's a lot of work for those 120 days at the beginning of every year. But now it is go time for bills, right? Like what bills passed, what
Hey,
bills
Ryan.
are still waiting. Yes, slow down.
Your excitement is reflected in your speed.
All right. Okay, so the session is over. Yeah, there's bills that passed, but some of them have yet to be signed by the governor, right? So it's still kind of a little bit of a waiting game right now. I'm not expecting any major things to happen within that. It's just a timing issue. There's a lot of bills that passed. So over the last couple weeks of session, there was a lot of changes to bills, really in that attempt to get bills passed, to make sure that we are that there were negotiations between legislators about their priorities, bills that didn't pass that they were running, trying to get some of those ideas into bills. So really, the last couple of weeks was a whirlwind of hey, where are we at? So we're kind of figuring that stuff out now. BHA tracked 36 behavioral health related bills. Not every one of those bills were specific to the Behavioral Health Administration. But we will, I'll work with Shane and the group to make sure that that bill dossier gets linked in the meeting minutes as well, so that you can have access to those bills that we passed. Once again, to remind you that not all of those bills did pass, but the bill dossier that you'll have access to shows where they at, what happened to them. I want to highlight a couple bills. I'm very excited about Senate Bill 1, 24001, which is called Continue Youth Mental Health Services Program. What that actually means, it continued the iMatter program, which provides free therapy sessions to youth that are screened in. That's allowed for ongoing funding. Folks are familiar with the iMatter program. It was really a year-by-year funding. So now this has continuous funding for that program at $5 million a year, which is a fantastic opportunity for kids to get the free therapy sessions if they need it. Another one I want to highlight for this group, Senate Bill 55. It's called the Agricultural and Rural Behavioral Health Care. This funds a staff position within the Behavioral Health Administration to serve as a liaison between the BHA, the Department of Agriculture, behavioral health providers, rural community leaders, as well as develop a training related to what behavioral health needs for individuals in agricultural communities are. So when we think about what service delivery looks like, agricultural communities and rural communities sometimes have their own unique challenges to accessing services. So this is that attempt, Senate Bill 55, really championed by Rocky Mountain Farmers Union, to make sure that the BHA has staff available for that community as well. House Bill 1038, High Acuity Crisis for Kids, that's $38 million a year in funding for services for high acuity service delivery for kids. I mean, I think that's a fantastic piece to make sure that, yes, the state is focused in on kids and what kids service delivery needs. That's across multiple state agencies, including healthcare policy and financing, Department of Human Services, as well as some funding for the Behavioral Health Administration in that. Another one, House Bill 1045, the treatment of substance use disorders. Don't let the name fool you. This is the making sure that individuals that are in carceral settings like jails have access to Medicaid prior to release. I think this is a huge opportunity for people to actually get the continuity of care that they need if they're in a jail setting, to make sure that they have access to the funding stream for services when they're in the communities. It's such a huge thing that needed to happen. So that's the opportunity there with 1045 to move that forward. Last one I'll highlight is House Bill 1355, measures to reduce the competency wait list. This requires every judicial district to create a wraparound diversion program. So an individual accesses or gets involved in the criminal justice system, there's an opportunity, if they're identified to have some behavioral health concerns, is that there's a pathway for them to move into a wraparound program that gets them community supports rather than continuing to move through the criminal justice system. The hope is that will decrease the competency wait list. That wait list for individuals have to be found competent in order to proceed through their criminal justice court process. So this is hopefully an opportunity that each judicial district will really utilize to get people to the spot that they need to be, which is in the community, not the criminal justice system. So with all of that, BHA is currently working on that external facing legislative session recap. So be on the lookout for that over the next few weeks here. And then ultimately that will also be how do those things fit together? How do bills this year fit into our larger vision of the system as well? I see Jamie has her hand up.
Thanks, Ryan. That was a great summary. I think we all are celebrating the end of the session and gearing up for next year. I am curious as to what the plan is for the crisis response teams as it relates to that bill not passing. And if there's any plans for the BHA to ask for continued funding moving forward.
Yep, great question, Jamie. That's House Bill 1019 that did not make it through the initial appropriations committee. So yes, we are looking into what that looks like. What is the whole flow and function of all of the programs, especially kids programs, as part of the Children and Youth Implementation Plan? Where do things fit in? What are funding needs moving forward for that? So those are some of the pieces as we move through our recaps and wrap up of a session. Like, what are some of the big pieces that we were hoping were going to get funded but didn't, and then working on plans through there. So be on the lookout for those things, as we'll also be working through that over these next few weeks as we go, which this is also one of those ones where it's an opportunity to make sure that we are connecting back through our community partners to make sure that we have a cohesive plan, because there's also a healthcare policy and financing component to that as well.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Are you planning on coming back to the BHAAC and continually giving updates as you're moving through plans moving forward? So I know that there's budget requests that are going to be happening through the BHA as it relates to a lot of these programs, and just wondering what your plan is for keeping us all updated as to how those discussions are moving forward, and specifically regarding the crisis response teams.
Yep. I would love to continue to work with BHAAC, but I will fully leave it up to BHAAC members about what they would like from us. I'm fully here to make sure that BHAAC is supported and understands what that flow and process does look like. From what do state ideas look like? What is the timing of those things behind the scenes? What are we working on with our state agency partners as well as community partners on ideas that lead to what are both decision items and legislative agenda bills for the upcoming session? That is an internal process that is happening now, that then the big date is the November 1 when the governor's budget gets released, which, yeah, that maybe seems like a long ways away, but it is not. So we're working on all of those stuff right now. So if that is the will of the council, I am more than happy to make sure that I am available to walk through those processes as well.
Yeah, I would totally second that and maybe expand a little bit on that, because we hear about the different legislative pieces, things that will pass, not pass, things that are funded, not funded. Is for all of us, I think the implementation is the critical piece, right? That we miss a loop in how things are being implemented, how the BHAAC can be apprised of that, but also provide feedback. Who are the right community partners? Where are the gaps? Catherine, I think you shouted that out before the commissioner's report. I think we'd all be really interested and excited to join for that piece. All the follow through from the legislative session, the class action suits, things like that would be great.
Thank you, Doctor. Yeah, I have a note on my talking points here is address how things fit together as action items. So yeah, both with the bills that passed, bills that didn't pass, how does that impact things moving forward? So yes, I have notes for myself to plug into the agenda if that is asked of me.
Thank you, Ryan, for your very detailed legislative update.
Try to slow down for you too, Megan. So
it was perfect. It won't work out well for the band, but
Ryan, I thought you did a really good job. Just kidding. I can tell you this, the coverage for people getting out of incarceration or for being released, amazing. Like, I mean, just couldn't be needed more. So I'm glad to hear that. And I want to piggyback on just knowing what passed and what didn't pass. And if it's possible to get a list out there, to the BHAAC committee of, hey, this went through, hey, this didn't go through. And maybe even, I just think it's helpful for us to know. So when we are saying like what's going on in our communities, we can also, like, as people with lived experience and even as providers living in our community, we can pass that information of what's available and what's not available, what passed, what didn't pass, because sometimes it doesn't even get to the providers till way later. So anything you could help us with that, Ryan, I know I'll definitely think that would be extremely helpful. I see Tasha has her hand up. Or Tasha has their hand up, sorry.
You're good. I was gonna ask a question and then I'm processing, so I apologize. I prematurely put my hand up, so thank you.
And then I just want to flag for us all that we're a little bit behind on the agenda.
Okay. All right, well, then since there's no hands up, let's move forward to the technology and community co-creating is up next.
Am I welcome to just jump in, or?
Yeah, sorry, I think Megan was muted when she was like inviting you. Sorry, Megan.
Thank you for calling me out. Sometimes I like to talk to myself when I
Yeah.
really want to talk to other people. Raya, thank you for joining us today. Welcome, and we are excited to hear your presentation and then for our council members to share their feedback.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. My name is Ria Singh. I use she, her pronouns. Thanks for having me back. It was such a pleasure to be with all of you in March and to get your feedback. So I am hopefully going to try to get us back on schedule and be concise with my updates. I want to do a quick recap about what we are trying to achieve for those of you who weren't here last time, and then give you updates on what progress we've made, and zero in a bit on some of the feedback that we heard from you all and share how we've already incorporated that or are planning to incorporate that. And then I always come to these meetings with an ask of all of you. So I will also have an ask and then hopefully save the majority of the time allotted for questions and feedback. All right. And it looks like I can control slides, which is very cool. So again, quickly, I want to give an overview of what Performance Hub is. This should look familiar for those of you who are part of the last session. The Performance Hub is essentially a website that will host data visualizations and contextual information about the state of behavioral health in Colorado. We're going to make sure that the Performance Hub meets its legislative requirements, but also go a couple steps further and make sure it's as useful as possible to users and stakeholders. It should be seen as a key source of data for behavioral health in Colorado by both providers and the general public. Our goal is to make sure that users have access to information, tools, and knowledge around behavioral health resources and how not only resources are used, but how services are being effectively provided and accessed. And we hope to enable data-informed change in partnership with our users. And data will be presented in user-friendly formats to encourage advocacy, informed dialogue, and general curiosity. So very excited that this is moving along. We, since last time, have kicked off a working group to prioritize a set of metrics, to set guidelines around how we should be building this out. We've designed the layout for the Performance Hub and key components of the system. So what supplementary documentation we want to make available, how we want to ensure that this is as accessible as possible, not only meeting standards, but reflecting and incorporating lived experience of a diverse set of users. We've acquired and ingested key data sources, which is the thing I'm very excited about because I love data. And we've started to build out the Performance Hub. So it's been a really exciting milestone. And starting to calculate and test metrics for our first iteration. So I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but we are moving towards a July 1st launch date. So we've prioritized a set of metrics that focus on essentially establishing a baseline. This is the first time that we're presenting this kind of data to the public. So we want to make sure that we are focused on sort of that first step. So how are services being utilized? What does capacity look like? And finally, sort of a focus on grievances. Last time I was here, you all asked a lot of really thought-provoking questions, which have guided our path in a lot of ways. So just wanted to sort of reflect that back to all of you. I think this first question, I recall Tasha asking the extent of valuing quality over quantity of data. I remember you asked that question, Tasha. You might not remember, but you definitely came from you. I think Karen asked the next question around lived experience and making sure that we're testing the product to make sure it not only meets accessibility standards, but needs. So thanks to all of you for these questions. Wanted to share back how this input has guided our path. So to start, the value of the system comes from the quality of the data. Seems like an obvious thing to say, but I think it's an important thing for us to be grounded in as we build out this product. And you know, the first iteration is going to be what it is. It will be sort of a baseline and a place to get started and build on. So focus on better, more inclusive, culturally humble, and administrative burden reducing data collection practices is something that we're really excited to move towards in the next couple of years as we build on this system. User acceptance testing is going to include individuals with lived experience in visual impairment to confirm adherence with accessibility standards, but also to catch things that we can't possibly catch as folks without that lived experience. So thanks again to this group for flagging that as a really important consideration for us. And finally, our roadmap of metrics will include a couple of things that were mentioned by this group. It will include a lot of other metrics as well, but wanted to flag two that were brought up by this group. One is effective measurement of cost of care. And then the next is generally measures that help us understand if our care is acceptable, responsive, and getting better in ways that matter. These two types of metrics or like areas within areas that will cover several metrics are going to be difficult for us to measure, but we're really looking forward to rising to the challenge of measuring these kinds of things. And finally, so that's sort of how we've incorporated your input so far. We are, as I mentioned, almost done building this out and ready to test it with users. So if anyone here is interested in being part of that process with us, this will kick off in early June. So please feel free to reach out to our team at this email address, and we will get you started with Performance Hub. And I think that's it for me. Any questions?
Couple people have their hands up. Tasha, I see you have your hand up, and Jamie.
Jamie was first, so she can go if she would like.
Okay.
Thank you for this presentation. I'm curious as to, is there an opportunity for us to review the metrics? My phone just decided to ring right this second. Sorry about that. Can we kind of see what the metrics are? And is there an opportunity as we go through the Performance Hub to kind of add on or change based on, you know, how the working group or how the users are finding that it's going? Or is it when, you know, when the metrics are locked in, that's all we can do for, you know, until there's an update?
It's a great set of questions. I'll take the first one first. So during the testing period in early June, folks will have a chance to take a look at the metrics, visualization, supporting documentation. So that will all be ready at that time. Today, we know what those metrics are, but we're still going through a round of testing and calculations and want to make sure we are absolutely sure what we're planning to deliver before we make that available for folks to give input on. So as I mentioned, early June is going to be that opportunity to provide input. To your second question, The purpose of Performance Hub is to be a useful resource, and I don't think a useful resource is something that is ever locked in to place. So I think the metrics that we define for our launch are the starting point, but there will absolutely be opportunity to build on this, to iterate, and we are looking forward to coming back to this group and building out that roadmap alongside with you. So yes, there is going to be going to be many opportunities to provide input and build on Performance Hub. Did that answer your question, Jamie? Tasha?
So my question, when it comes to the performance monitoring system, especially with the report coming up, how is it going to differ from this year than last year? Like, and do we have any data already to within the last year for the performance of what's been going on in the state?
That is a really great question. Those are the data insights that we're calculating right now. And that's what's going to be available early June to take a look at. It's going to be a combination of metrics comparing sort of year over year. So comparing 2022 to 2023, but also looking at where we have data more frequent, like quarter over quarter, month to month, kinds of metrics. So looking forward to sharing those insights very soon.
Just wondering what sort of other data systems that you all have been looking at in terms of tracking, particularly access, care quality, and cost. Like what sorts of, and I think that's where it's like, if things are coming in early June, I just want to make sure that the BHAAC is also engaged before our July meeting. Again, those measures are really important, right? Even if we can evolve them or change them, I think there are sort of other frameworks for how do you measure quality or access or accessibility in these things. So I just would love to hear some of the background of them.
Yeah, so happy to speak to some of the data sources that we're using. One of our main data sources is the All Payers Claims database. So we're leveraging that for several access and utilization, specifically mental health and substance use disorder penetration rates. So we're leveraging that data source. We're also looking at MSO waitlist data to start to understand capacity. And then several systems that we maintain at the BHA, including the complaint response form, is a data source that we're using, ladders as well, to provide some insight into the grievances process. So those are the data sources for this first iteration, but we will be sharing out the other data sources that we are looking to either acquire or start to use based on what we've already been able to acquire. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and I'll just make one other comment is sometimes the data that we have available to us, right, is not always the data that we need to know if we're improving, we're addressing gaps, if it's hitting the mark, right, from the communities that we're hoping to serve. And so that's where it's sometimes creating the right metrics also and creating the right data infrastructure on the back end to collect that in a seamless, unburdensome way will be, I think, in next iterations, probably be like somewhere where we be really focused. What are meaningful data points that we might not have access to, or you all might not have access to, sort of a North Star, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Carolyn? It's like you're muted.
So I have a question. So like, if people have a performance and a standard that they need to hold up to, and when that is not being done, how is that corrected so that our services are the highest quality, versus people just skimming through to do whatever just to show that they're doing good performance when maybe they might not. And I don't know, maybe I'm being skeptical, but I was just curious as to how that's going to get resolved.
Yeah, I'm happy to take a stab at that. Other friends from BHA, feel free to chime in. The purpose of the Performance Hub in this first iteration is to share out on what we know and what data we have access to right now. The purpose is not to hold do compliance related work. There is a separate division that does that is ongoing work that I think someone else on this call can probably speak to better than I can.
Right. Well, sorry. Go ahead, Tosh. I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask about like when it comes to the performance and like the funding and stuff like that comes from the federal government. So the federal block grant dollars and with the services that are not being provided, is that being tracked and where's the money still going? Like if the services aren't being given with the funding and stuff, where's the money?
So could I ask a question? Because I think mine is very similar to what Tasha said, if that's okay, Tasha. So my question is, I like that there's a performance hub, right? And I like that we're looking at the performance hub. But I heard you say that you're looking at MSO wait lists, and I think that's important. But are we looking at like there's been changes with Medicaid that impacts the performance of the providers? There's been changes, as Tosh said, with funding that impacts the performance of the providers. The raise and what they accept, that impacts the performance of. I don't hear a lot of like, and I know that working with the MSOs, that impacts, is there a performance? Well, I know we're going to the BOSO system, but I don't hear a performance. Who's monitoring their performance? Do you know what I mean? So I think it sounds like we have. It sounds like we're focused on one part of the system. And so to truly get performance, we'd have to look at, in my opinion, the raise, funding sources, because it's easy to be mad at a provider, or it's easy to be mad at somebody who's trying to get an ASAM done, but doesn't have a bed, and they seem like they're unhelpful, and the person doesn't have Medicaid. They're trying to get on Medicaid. The ASAM's no good by the time the Medicaid's ready to pop off, so that we need to do another one because it took 2 weeks to get Medicaid. There's so many things to look at. And when we're looking at performance, it feels like it should be a performance of the system and all aspects of the system, instead of focusing on we're basically focusing on the downstroke of the pedal and not the whole thing that got us the momentum in the first place. So I would just throw that out there, that there seems to be, focused on one aspect of the process. And so I just think if we could, build on that. And I think this is hard because there's a lot of unknowns right now and a lot of changes, but it's just feels like one part of the system is being held accountable. And I would love to see that just a wider view of everything. Sorry, I know somebody else had their hand up.
No, it was me, Dr. Rob. I was just gonna chime in, Rhea and Dr. Rob. So this is actually going to be part of your annual report. So that this is like why this council was created, is to look at these metrics and advise as to what we're missing. Right now we do have this like kind of tunneled scope, and you guys are the providers. You're the ones with feet on the ground that are seeing the metrics that we are missing. And so that's absolutely going to be something in this report. And so if this is something that you all are very passionate about and you want the answers to, I highly suggest, if you can, with your schedule, making time to be a part of that report subcommittee, because these are the questions that we're going to be asking. These are the things, this is the whole purpose. It's, hey, you've done this metric, but we're missing this metric. This is why we need this metric. And so that's how we're going to continue to build out this performance hub. We're going to continue to get the data that we need, is by your all's recommendations.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I've never seen there's a lot of boxes saying file a grievance on a provider or file a grievance on this. I don't see any grievance boxes for Medicaid or for MSOs or for BHAs. Do you know what I mean? And so, not saying that you ever do anything wrong, but I'm just saying it is nice to be able to know that, because the providers definitely, I mean, Signal's great, but I would never, if I had an issue, I'd be like, I'm not gonna talk smack about Signal. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're awesome. So it just does look like I said, the system. So I'm glad to hear that we will be a part of that. And I definitely will love to be a part of doing that report. Who else had their hand up? Anybody else have their hand up?
All clear on hands, Dr. Rob.
Okay, I was just clicking through. Any other questions?
I'm gonna jump in. My name is Kristen Lara, and I am the next segment. Hi, everyone. Kind of prematurely to tie a bow on this. So one way that I'd really encourage this team to think about the Performance Hub and the launch this summer is really that it is creating the space for the transparency that you guys are looking for in order to be able to ask questions and see some of those answers and then go, you know what, I don't know that we asked the question the right way, or I think we need this new data source and what we've got today isn't working, or it is working. What we're going to do is we're going to learn over time what kinds of information we need and how we use that then to identify pain points in the system, work on them, work to improve them, see what works, see what doesn't work. So I would really think about the Performance Hub more so as the foundational infrastructure for creating a common sense of transparency and visibility into the system. And the metrics themselves that it starts with are just the starting point. Like the metrics are just part of it. It really is about what is that foundation for making information available and accessible to have these kinds of conversations that we're having right now. Like this has been a phenomenal conversation. These are all really great questions, and the underlying intention or purpose of the legislation that created the Performance Hub. So just wanted to throw that out there to kind of tie a bow on where we're at in this process and what I hope we get to do together moving forward.
Thank you, Kristen. And I think it would be also helpful to know why it was started, where it was started. You know, like why that metrics. Do you know what I mean? Why? What was that? Why was that the starting point?
Yes, and I'm guessing though, Rhea, I might punt this back to you, that in June, a lot of the underlying kind of explanation that is with those initial metrics will explain what we were attempting to at least initially answer with data that was available to us, including, and I'm just gonna flag this one more time because it's really exciting, BHA was able to receive the all payer claims database data from our Center for Improving Value in Healthcare, or CIVIC. And that's a really exciting data source and one that BHA has not had access to in this way until this point. And so I know that the list that Rhea provided was long, and it included that one at the top and then many existing data sources that you've heard about at BHA before. But I want to center us back up at the top one, which is a lot of behavioral health, mental health, and substance use disorder data within our centralized statewide repository of claims data.
So it looks like the only other question is from an attendee, and we will circle back to that as it was put in the chat. Is there anything else? And thank you. Sorry we hijacked. I think it shows how important what you're doing is, because everybody kind of got involved in the conversation, which I think is super cool.
I don't think it's hijacking at all. It's this is why we came here and what we wanted to talk with this team about.
Awesome.
I see Tasha.
I just have one question right quick. I just want to make sure that the reason that we're advising on all this stuff is not due to just the lawsuits that are going on in the state and that make us have to like be accountable, the state to be accountable, that we have to hold to what's in the consent decrees. I want to make sure that the work that we're doing is really embedded, not just to apply or to save face for, I don't know how to, if I said that right, to save face for the lawsuits, but that it's actually genuine and that it's going to hold beyond these lawsuits. Does that make sense?
Yep. And I will say, I would not have made a direct connection between those two. So the way that we're thinking about what needs to be included in the Performance Hub is really thinking about overarching behavioral health care systems reform and what we need to do to be able to, what we need to see in order to understand if that system is functioning as we would like it to, as we make reform changes across the state. So that's really the grounding purpose of it, is to be able to have more insights into how the system is operating.
Thank you.
Alrighty, Rob, I know that I've got 1 minute left for the next 3 slides. Am I okay to jump into the next part? Is that okay?
Yep,
All right, I'm gonna,
Kristen,
awesome.
you
yes?
can go till 11:25.
Okay.
I think that'll still give Stephen enough time, but we just need to make sure that we end right at 11:25.
That sounds great. And I'm going to be really high level. I wanted to circle back to this team more generally around what our approach is to co-creating as it relates to technology and data. So it really is on some level a continuation of this conversation we just had. I think the Technology and Data Division has realized that we have popped in and asked you questions or asked you for guidance and support on specific topical areas or projects or products, but we haven't explained to you some of that take a step back, explain overarching approach or strategy that we take when it comes to co-creating with people in Colorado on our digital products. And so this is really just kind of this creating the space for that brief overview. And so I can be quick, Megan. Okay, so as you may recall from our previous BHAAC meetings, the Technology and Data Division's role is to use data, design, and technology as accelerators to achieving our BHA priorities or our behavioral health reform goals. We believe, and I believe in particular, in a people, process, technology approach to our work. And so that means that we first center on people's needs. We then identify what processes systematically get people what they need. And then very last, we think about from what can we do to enable that through technology or to standardize that through technology to get people what they need in Colorado. So really technology is all about the people. I believe this approach to technology really closely aligns with BHA's value of community-informed practice. And while I know that the Tech and Data Division has come to you guys with requests on specific projects, I wanted to create this space for a broader share out on our methodology for co-creation. So I'm hoping that you leave this session with just kind of broader line of sight into the ways that we use user-centered technology projects, how they're being designed, how they're being delivered to address the needs of people in Colorado. All right, so let me advance my slides. I forgot that I can do that. Okay, so here are the, so we do research for a range of different reasons. And at its core, it helps us to inform our design and development efforts. It helps us to challenge our assumptions about our users and what they need. And it helps us to better serve our community. How we go about this is critical to doing research and co-design well. And so I consider research to be an integral part of how BHA approaches our technology and data projects. And my team brings people from outside of our team into that process in 3 distinct ways. So first, early in the process, we want to make sure that we are building the right thing. We do research to understand who we are designing for, what their existing experiences are, and what their true needs are. We challenge our own assumptions about what people may need, and we challenge those built into the legislation that is often the starting point for any sort of project. This ensures that we're making decisions based on people's real lives, not any sort of standard person, which doesn't exist, and our assumptions about, and that we're challenging our own assumptions about what people's lives might look like, because oftentimes our assumptions are wrong. Next, or second, as we get into the details of designing and building technology, we do research to ensure that we are building the right thing. This means putting early prototypes in front of users to get their interpretations and reactions and adjusting our plans based on their feedback. And then finally, as we launch a new system, we conduct research to understand how the thing we built fits into people's lives and the impact it has. We gather feedback from users to continually influence how we make changes to the products that we've built and to prioritize additional functionality or improvements to those systems. And yes, Tasha, you're correct. Okay, so key considerations. As we plan and conduct the research that I've just described here, there are a couple of things that we think deeply about that may be of interest to you guys. So first and foremost, how useful our research can be and is driven by who we speak with. So when we recruit participants, we consider the diversity of the individuals involved from the very beginning. We aim to speak with people from a variety of ethnicity and race, age, gender, living and family situations across urban and rural communities. And we actively consider which aspects of people's lived experience are particularly relevant to the work that is at hand. To enable this, we compensate participants for their time and their expertise where it is appropriate. So not only is this a fair thing to do, it also ensures that we're getting input from people who might not otherwise be able to take 30 minutes or an hour out of their day unpaid to share their thoughts with us. It is also important that we meet people where they are and are respectful and thoughtful of people's lived experiences. And to this end, our team brings a range of trauma-informed methodologies to the table. So I'm going to close it out there. I'm at 11:25, Megan. I'm really grateful for your guys' time, and if you have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. And thank you for letting me take an extra 5 minutes out of your day today.
All right, thank you. Thank you for getting all that in so quickly. Next, we're going to go over, and it sounds like we're behind a little bit. We're going to go over the grievance system development with Stephen. So I will pass the mic.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And Kristen, no worries about going over a little bit in time here. I think I'll have plenty of time to get through my notes and then offer opportunity as well for these council members to provide me some feedback as well. So with that, I will go ahead and get started. Good morning, council members. My name is Stephen Ma, he, him pronouns, and I am the enforcement manager for the Behavioral Health Administration's Quality and Standards Division. I'm pleased to join your council again to update you on the grievance work progress we've made since I was previously before you last year. If I could get the next slide, that'd be great. Now, my last time I was here, let's do a brief recap here. So the last time I was here, I walked through how BHA receives, investigates, and responds to individual complaints and how we look to learn and make process improvements from our review of all complaints. One of the things I want to call out here is we recognize that historically complaint processes within state agencies and offices that oversee our behavioral health system have generally been conducted independently. We also, last time I was here, had discussed the first BHA annual grievance report, which was published in July of 2023. If I could get my next slide, please. Another thing that we had discussed the last time I was here was the BHA system-wide grievance system requirements that are part of the laws that created BHA. Today, I'd like to focus on the requirements for how BHA addresses individual complaints. The statute tasks BHA to streamline its complaint resolution process for individual complaints. It also tasks us to modify the process to address grievances in ways that grievance programs traditionally have not. And it asks us to continue our work with BHA's process regarding referrals to the Behavioral Health Ombudsman Office. Based on feedback we received from my last visit here at BHAAC, direct community feedback that came in through the grievance stakeholder options on our BHA webpage, feedback from meetings with disability advocates and the Interagency Council, information from the Bloomworks discovery process that in part made recommendations for technology solutions for complaints, and consideration of feedback from past BHA initiatives and the Behavioral Health Task Force, we identified the following 3 areas of focus for changes to our complaint process. And if I could get the next slide, please. First, we hear and recognize how frustrating it is when people are told that their complaint actually belongs somewhere else. BHA has historically worked to identify when it's appropriate to make referrals to other agencies or offices when we believe they may be able to help. But in recent months, we've worked extensively with other agencies and ombudsman offices to even better understand their processes for complaint work and to better inform them about BHA processes too. We've done this work because we don't want any complainant who shows the courage and takes the time to reach out to BHA to feel like their concern has arrived at the wrong door. We would like to modify our complaint intake process to confirm at the start if the complainant gives us permission to make a referral of their complaint when appropriate to other agencies and offices. And we plan to use the work we've done building relationships between offices to enhance the experience of complainants in getting their complaints to the appropriate offices without needing to be an expert on behavioral health agency oversight in Colorado. Next, we hear and recognize the concern that making a complaint could lead to retaliation or mistreatment. In our rules and in our culture at BHA, it is clear that acts of retaliation or poor treatment for making a complaint will not be tolerated. Our updated policy will make clear that any act of retaliation or unfair treatment that appears to result from the submission of a complaint should be submitted to our BHA staff. If such an act is substantiated, BHA would consider it an attempt to interfere with our grievance and oversight processes, and we would pursue those instances as violations of one of our new rules that I've cited here, Rule 2.24.2a, which I want to call out the language in this rule. It provides that preventing, interfering with, or attempting to impede in any way the work of a representative or agent of the BHA in investigating or enforcing an applicable statute or regulation, it may result in serious action by BHA. And this type of serious action would be up to and including BHA potentially taking away the BHA license for them to practice those services if such conduct is found. So I think it's really important to call out not only that we have the regulatory ability to pursue action if such things occur, but that absolutely, as I've already stated, there's absolutely zero tolerance for that type of conduct. And I think it's important for that to be explicitly part of the policy and for our community to understand that that's the stance and position of BHA as well. Lastly, we hear and recognize how disappointing it is when people feel like their complaints just go into a black box. So in regard to this one, I want to call out the efforts that we've made to add more power to the staff that we have working on these complaints that come into BHA. So we've recently hired our grievance officer, Rochelle Gailey, to join Chelsea Zemer and myself on our team. We also work very closely with a very robust and growing licensing team within the Quality and Standards Division. And so with that, with our expanded unit, and additionally, we're also looking to hire an individual with medical experience in behavioral health to join the team. We look to using this larger team to empower a process that's very people-oriented, very, very personable. We want to continue to improve the customer experience for complainants by putting more of a face on the complaint process. We'll be working to offer a personalized experience where, in addition to ensuring that written correspondence confirming the receipt and outcome of a complaint are delivered, we will also make it clear that there are opportunities to speak to our staff to provide further detail during the course of an investigation or to ask questions, and to receive explanations about the investigation and work done on the complaint when our investigation has concluded. I want to call out that we have a really skilled and dedicated group of people that are working in this space. And we really want and are committed to making sure that that is reflected in the way the public has experienced their work with us as well. With that all being said, these are the 3 areas of focus that we're working to implement by July 1st, and a process that'll kind of be ongoing from there. I want to say that this we don't consider to be kind of the end of the road in terms of changes to our process, but really the start of a journey where we're really taking direct feedback about what is and isn't working about our process and fine-tuning it to kind of move forward that way. So at this point, I would be glad to take any questions or receive any feedback that the council members here may have about these areas of focus or improvements to our individual complaint process within BHA.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions, comments?
I see a hand up from Jamie. I'd be glad to take your question.
Thanks, Stephen. When you're receiving these complaints, and I guess, what is the transparency around kind of the nature of the complaints or the themes around the complaints? So how are you bringing it back to like the general public in regards to, we saw X number of complaints regarding, whatever, lack of availability or in-person services or whatever the case may be. So we can look at the complaints that are being received to help inform general system changes and enhancements.
It's a great question, Jamie. So I think that there is a few different ways that we are kind of working in that direction. So one of them is, as I had called out earlier, we had prepared our first annual report in July of 2023. So that basically covered that first kind of fiscal year of operations for BHA. And in that report, we had aggregated anonymized data that talked about both complaints and critical incident reports. It talked about the categories of kind of what type of concern was submitted, and then it provided some information. In that particular report, we had seen kind of a trend with some denial information, for example. So what we saw there was an opportunity to kind of talk about a specific area of concern in greater detail without kind of threatening the confidentiality of the type of complaints that were submitted. Like, we would never want to do a report out that might be identifiable for a specific individual, for example. So that's one way that we had done this last year to report out. We will have an even more robust report coming out by the end of this fiscal year. So another kind of July 1st, 2024 report that will be coming out in that category. I don't want to kind of go too far off on the separate path either, but I think it's worth sharing kind of our intentions at least. Another place that we intend to eventually head towards is making availability about a complaint that leads to an actually substantiated violation against a behavioral health agency out there. We have kind of statutory intent as well as an intent as an agency to get to a point where that information is more readily available as well, so that when individuals are making decisions in regard to their behavioral health care, they have a better resource to kind of know kind of compliance history, and specifically kind of compliance history when it comes to substantiated complaints. So that's another place that I can't really speak to timeline right now, but would be another way that I think that we'd be looking to address kind of what you're talking about is kind of availability of information to consumer.
All right. Anybody else? Stephen, I'll throw this out there too. I think not this time, but maybe next time you could come back and also present on the investigative process when looking into the complaints. I know now we don't have time, but that would be a great presentation to hear about how that's going down. Will the BHA be leaving, coming into the communities, talking to the providers, looking at, really just being in the communities when a complaint's filed and coming, checking out the facilities and, talking to, I would just like to know that process. And I think others would too. I know we don't have time for that today. So who else had their hand up? Tosh, did you have your hand up?
I just have one question. Does the public know how to follow, like how the grievance, like how to file a grievance because of their care? Like if they're not getting the services that they need, does the public even know how to do that? Or that it's available? Or where to go?
Yeah, it's a great question, Tasha. So I mean, it's required for behavioral health entity or licensed organizations or designated organizations to post the information about how to reach out to BHA with complaints, and that's something that's part of the inspection or kind of audit processes that go along with licensing, is to make sure that information is properly published. There's actually a new rule requirement that also speaks to making sure that information is available to any individuals at the time of discharge. So there's some regulatory pieces that are in place to make sure that info is available. We also do the best that we can to make that readily available information on our website. So our intention is certainly for everyone to know that that we're here to receive those types of concerns whenever they may arise for folks.
Thank you.
Carolyn or Caroline?
Yeah, I'm looking to try and find the new rules because I'd like to learn more about them. Is that under the Colorado Judicial Branch's adopted rule changes for 2024, or where do I find this?
Yeah, Carolyn, if I could, so those the rules for state agencies are kept and published by the Colorado Secretary of State. And I would be glad to work with Megan to share out the web links that give access to those rules. And yeah, certainly glad to get that information shared with you. I think I saw a nod from Megan that sounded doable for her, so I'd be glad to work with her on that.
Yeah,
Thank
Stephen,
you.
if you want to send me anything you want to send me in an email that I can share out to BHAAC, I'm happy to do so as a follow-up. Caroline, are you still talking? I think you're back on mute, but it looked like you said something else. Oh, you're back on mute again.
Okay.
There you are.
Well, thank you both very much.
Well, if there are not further questions, actually, if I could go ahead and switch over to my last slide. The last point I wanted to emphasize today is that if there's ever further outreach or questions, not only before we kind of implement some new policy changes around complaint processes for BHA by July 1st of this year, but before then or after then, at any point in time, our group really values so much kind of getting feedback or knowing how we can get better. And so my contact information's here. I also have, there is a part of our website right now where individuals can either email or send an anonymous form in that talks about any other further feedback they have about how the complaint process can be better. And actually, maybe this works kind of neatly together. I'd be glad to prepare an email to Megan that not only has the link to the rules, but also how to access any of that kind of complaint, grievance project stakeholder feedback, and also my contact information. So kind of a one-stop shop for getting in touch with me and my team, and then also having an opportunity to make sure that you all are familiar with the new licensing rules that were in effect as of January 1st of this year, if you haven't had a chance to kind of review those previously.
I think Caroline's hand up again, and then there's a, oh, go ahead, Caroline.
I'm sorry, I forgot to unraise my hand.
Okay. And then I also wanted to point out, Stephen, that you have a question in the chat. Tasha, did you want to ask your question out loud, or do you want me to read it?
I can read it out loud. I was just wondering how many times were the new rules changed last year when you guys were all doing the rule changes, and when was, I think you answered this, but I just want to clarify that I heard you correctly. When was the final rule change implemented? Like, when did those take effect?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be glad to address that. So I believe there is actually a minor rule change that happened in July of 2023, but the major rule overhaul was like a one-stop shop of some really considerable changes that I believe that those were approved as of last November, so November of 2023, and then the effective date was January 1st of 2024 for the really big rule overhaul that was contemplated under the statutes that created BHA. There is going to be some other rule changes that will be coming. I know that there's some rule revision to controlled substance licensing rules and some other areas. But the great big rule overhaul that was such a big piece of the statute, that one was effective January 1st of 2024.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Stephen.
We still have 4 minutes. If anyone, don't be shy with your questions, council members.
This is the awkward silence I always talk about.
Well, I was looking to see if we still had, I know we kind of rushed Kristen, but I don't see her on here anymore, just if there were any additional questions for that team. But I think they've jumped off. Tasha, did you have a question?
I do, but I'll connect with you after the meeting because there's a lot on my head right now. So just some stuff I want to clarify with you and stuff like that with the report, or Caitlin, whoever I can connect with when it comes to the report. So
okay. Yeah, if it would be helpful for the council, we have 3 minutes. Caroline, I also see your hand up, but I don't know if that's accident or not.
I do have a question. So on the matrix, I understand that they're going for design, data, and technology. And I know that works, that works for us, but I'm wondering, how are we gathering information in the most respectful way to people who are immigrants that immigrated to Colorado that may have fears of people knowing any information, and how are we gathering information for these people to learn how we could best serve them? Most often it's done face to face and in person. So I was just wondering, how is that going to be resolved? So it made me think of that. when she was talking.
Thank you, Carolyn. I believe she has jumped off of the call. If you want to email me your question specifically, I will get it to her and we'll get a response to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up at this time. So I wanted to put out a reminder. In 1 minute, we'll be moving into public comment, which that section is at 11:50 a.m. As a reminder, public comment time during this meeting should be relevant to the Behavioral Health Administration Advisory Council. Members of the public will be able to raise their hand to be unmuted. Please announce your name, then take no longer than 2 minutes for your comment. Members of the public have the option to make their comment via the Q&A feature as well. Please note that public comments will be accepted but may not be answered live.
Before we get into public comment, I want to just say thank you to everybody who presented today and everybody who participated so far. It was a very productive meeting in my opinion, so thank you all.
And thank you, Dr. Rob, for being an awesome co-chair or an awesome chair this meeting and all the other times you do it. You're doing awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Rob. You can move us into public comment when you're ready.
All right, well, we're ready. Let's move into public comment.
Megan, looks like I do have a general member of the audience with their hand up, and I believe it's Eileen Johnsrud. Eileen, you can go ahead and make your public comment maybe in 1 second here. I see your hand up. 1 second.
And Eileen, as a reminder, you will have 2 minutes for your public comment.
Okay, I have asked Eileen to unmute, but I don't know if they saw that. All right, maybe they left their hand up by accident. Eileen, if you are hearing this, I will also put this in the chat, and you still want to make a comment, please let us know that.
Raina, are there any other hands up for public comment?
I don't see any from the general public. Yeah, I don't see any hands. Oh, it looks like I have one here. Let's see here. From Kelly. Kelly, I just asked for you to unmute yourself, and so you should have gotten a notification. Looks like you're able to speak. Go ahead. Make sure you
Can you hear me?
introduce yourself. Yes.
Okay, so I actually posted this question in the Q&A, but I'm wondering, earlier you were talking about the family council turning into a coalition, and I'm interested to know how that would work in terms of, would that then kind of dilute any input they might have, or how would that? I also noticed that Ryan talked about how that the family council is not part of the BHAAC. So I'm not sure, like, how does that actually work with the family councils, and how would the coalition be different than the family council?
Thank you for your question. So we're still working out all of the details of the coalitions. And so we will get back to you when we have that all worked out. The Family Voice Coalition just like when we were going to go to a family voice council, is not, it is not the same. It's completely separate than the Behavioral Health Administration Advisory Council. So while both associated with BHA, both very much focused on ensuring that the voices of the community are brought into the work that we're doing, they are not part of the advisory council. And I think there was a little bit of confusion around subcommittees versus coalitions. And so we will get clarification on subcommittees, which are part of the advisory council. And the moving from Family Voice Council to Family Voice Coalition allows us to involve more people. It allows us to make it broader and bigger, and to focus it on 4 different regions of the state, so that we're ensuring that voices from all underserved communities throughout Colorado, not just in certain areas, are brought into the work that we're doing. And so what I can tell you is that those coalitions will work very closely with our regional engagement specialists for each of the regions. And then those regional engagement specialists will also be joining our BHAAC meetings. And so there will be that full circle of communication into everything that we're doing.
Okay, that actually directly answers the concern. Thank you.
Raina, if we are we not seeing any other hands up?
No, I do not see any hands up. And I'm gonna put Kelly's down.
With that, I want to thank all of you for being here with us today. Really great discussion. This council continues to grow and be progressive in the input and the guidance that you all are able to give us. It's really great to hear all of the discussion whenever topics are brought back up. And I definitely want to hear your feedback, specifically on both of the presentations that you had today. These are both presenters that have come to you in previous months that you gave input to. And so now they've come back and used some of your guidance to modify what we're doing. And so I want to hear from you all. If you want to send email to me, I would love to hear more on what that experience has been like for you as well. And then I will pass it back to you, Dr. Rob, to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, Megan, before we move on to Rob, may I add something?
Yes.
Okay, we got a question in the Q&A that I want to, like right before you started speaking, that I missed. I want to make sure we answer it live. And the question is, what is the timeline for new BHAAC appointments? I only caught the portion of that discussion. Thank you.
We are still working out some of the details of that. So I will be working closely with Caitlin on that, and working to really look at a process that has membership coming up every year. So we will be making BHAAC appointments this year, but we're also looking at how many we will make it this time to get our council where it needs to be, but also looking at spreading some of the appointments out so that we don't have our entire council coming to term at the same time every year. So we really want there to be different, so it's kind of in steps of when the terms are. Caitlin, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Nope, you got it spot on. Looks like Tasha has their hand raised.
Yeah, question. And Caitlin, maybe you can answer this because in bylaws, like, are we allowed to run for 2 terms, like 2 to 3 year terms, the inaugural, or is that going forward too? Like, are we allowed to run 2 terms?
So that's actually something that I am working with our policy team to include in our bylaws. Statute, as you may know, is like it can be very vague and kind of open into interpretation. So we first and foremost want to make sure that we're in statutory compliance. But that will be something that's going to be included in this first draft of bylaws is A, term limits, and then B, how many terms can be served. So more clarification on that to come, but that is a question that I have asked myself and will be clarified in the coming future.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And any other concerns, I'll just reach out to you directly.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Dr. Roberts, back to you.
Yep, that's what I was looking. I was just waiting to see if anybody else. Okay, if that's it, do we need a motion or we can just shut the meeting down?
Motion.
Motion.
Or someone has to motion. I wasn't motioning.
Somebody want a motion?
I motion, Tasha Conquer here, motions to end the meeting.
Okay, second.
I second.
All right. Having said that, thank you, everybody. Meeting is adjourned.
Woo! Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Good to see your
Great
faces.
meeting you all.